In the devastated lands between, the player encounters a young woman named Millicent, a tragic figure afflicted by Scarlet Rot, a curse that consumes both body and soul. Today's video will not only explore Millicent's story, but also how she embodies the archetype of the tragic female heroine in her struggle for autonomy and sacrifice. I will also show how Millicent resembles the figure of saints who sacrifice their bodies and souls in defense of their ideals and beliefs. Let's begin the tale of Millicent, one filled with rot, resilience, and willpower. Following my fascination with characters marked by Scarlet Rot, it's time to talk about Millicent. She is first introduced as a red-haired young woman dying of Scarlet Rot in the swampy wilds of Caelid. She and 4 other girls, her sisters, were found as children in the swamp of Ionia by the sage Gowry, who raised them as his daughters. Milicent alone remained with Gowry in Caelid, perhaps seeking to evolve her body and soul, or perhaps still tormented by the disease, while the other 4 sisters eventually journey north towards Miquella's Haligtree. When the Tarnished meet her, Milicent is barely clinging to life in the Church of the Plague, missing an arm and consumed by the incurable rot. Gowry pleads for the Tarnished's help, explaining that only a rare unalloyed golden needle can stop the rot's advance. Gowry knows of this item because he is a kindred of Rot, a devout follower of Malenia. The needle once belonged to the goddess of Rot, but was removed in the heat of her battle against Radahn, allowing her to overcome the general. Thrown away in the swamp of Ionia, it came into the hands of Commander O'Neill, an ally of Radahn, who remains there, now entirely consumed by Rot. Perhaps he kept the needle to show Radahn, perhaps as a green trophy of war. Either way, the unalloyed gold needle is one of the many tools crafted by Miquella to ward away the meddling of outer gods. That is, it was made to suppress the Scarlet Rot in his beloved sister, Malenia. Gowry knows this and seeks to use the needle on Millicent, to save her from the Rot advance before she is ready to embrace the transformation. In one dialogue, the sage even admits that Millicent is being tended by Rot creatures who revere her, or rather, her diseased, as a sign of the god of Rot.
Please make certain that little Millicent goes unharmed. Like her mother, she has the stuff to be a great warrior, but commands only one arm and is yet preciously young.
With that unalloyed gold needle in hand, Millicent, wary but willing, pierces it into her corrupted flesh. In an almost miraculous turn, the needle stalls the Scarlet Rot within her, allowing her frail body to regain strength. This is the first glimpse of Millicent's unusual resilience, surviving and fighting against a disease that transforms everything it touches. She knows this too, since the rot consumed her memories, and Millicent remembers little of her past. After her recovery, Millicent's true journey begins, and the Tarnished follows the path of this fearless woman. We discover that Millicent sets out alone, retracing the footsteps of Malenia, Blade of Miquella, the legendary demigod who is the very source of the Scarlet Rot.
Ah, we meet again. In truth, it's been smooth sailing for me. The Scarlet Rot has stilled since last we met. As such, I've been able to continue my journey. Now I'm tracing the path Malenia took, after unleashing the power of the Scarlet Rot during her battle with General Radahn in the Caelid Wilds. I should like to meet her, this vanished woman.
Millicent's decision to follow Malenia's path feels like a kind of pilgrimage. She's not fleeing from the rot that nearly killed her. She walks toward its origin, perhaps seeking understanding or closure. Millicent's story mirrors Malenia's in many ways. According to the Portese's warrior heirloom, though born into the accursed rot, when the young girl encountered her mentor and his flowing blade, she gained wings of unparalleled strength. This passage tells Malenia's story and how she overcome her curse with sheer will, and of course the help of her mentor, the blind swordsman. But Milicent too overcome adversity. She was born of Rot and raised by a tutor, Gary, who, unlike the blind swordsman, had darker motives. As she travels north, Milicent remains solitary, soft-spoken, gentle, yet unwavering. In Altus Plateau, she admits she could do much more if she had her arm, and yet there she stands, fighting for her purpose. One curious detail Elden Ring players may notice: Millicent appears as an NPC invader the first time the player enters the Ionia Swamp, and at that point she has both arms. Perhaps the Tarnish is partially responsible for her injury. We might infer that Gowry, seeking to push his daughter forward, threw her into battle with the Tarnished to test her resolve. In Altus Plateau, the Tarnish offer Millicent a Valkyrie's prosthesis, a golden artificial arm found in the ruins of the Shaded Castle. This prosthetic replaced her missing right arm, enabling her to once again wield a sword. The gesture, symbolically, links Millicent to Malenia, who also lost an arm. None of Millicent's sisters bear this wound, only Millicent carries the same mark as Malenia. By accepting the Valkyrie's prosthesis, Millicent not only regains her strength, she moves closer to becoming Malenia's mirror.
Ah, we meet yet again. The arm you gave me truly is a thing of wonder. It feels just like my own. Even handling a sword. Perhaps it is foolish to say this to you of all people, but I am sure of my skill with the sword. Thus, I would have you call upon me in battle, should you ever have the need.
This moment marks a turning point. Despite all she has suffered, Millicent is eager to help the player, and more importantly, to fight like a Valkyrie. And the choice of the term Valkyrie is no accident. In Norse mythology, a Valkyrie is a supernatural female spirit who serves Odin. Valkyries ride into battle to choose who lives and who dies, guiding the souls of warriors to Valhalla. They are both beautiful and fearsome, symbols of war, fate, and divine judgment. They are also compared with noble warrior maidens, being associated with courage, sacrifice, and a sacred duty to serve something greater than themselves. A role that fits Millicent perfectly, especially if she were to be reborn as a beautiful Scarlet Valkyrie. Millicent eventually reaches the far north, managed to enter the hidden refuge of Mikila's Halig Tree, the final sanctuary of Malenia. It is in this place, beautiful but saturated by Scarlet Rot, that she and the Tarnished meet once more. Here, Millicent reveals the truth about herself. She is of Malenia's blood. Trusting the player, she says,
Can we meet? I can only surmise our purposes are aligned. In which case, allow me to explain myself. I am of Malenia's blood, but in what capacity I know not. I could be sister, daughter, or an offshoot. Whatever the case, though, I am certain of a kinship between us.
It is in this moment that the young woman begins to understand her true connection to Malenia, something Gary had long awaited. Millicent's importance lies not in simply having been born of Scarlet Rot, like the kindred of Rot, but in being born of Malenia's very blood. Perhaps she and her sisters were born from the scarlet bloom Malenia unleashed in Caelid. Perhaps there are experiments or sprouts of Rot cultivated by Gary, like small plants nurtured in a swamp. As the sage himself says,
The girl, Millicent, she is a bird, green and undeveloped, waiting to flower into magnificence. What a wondrous day that will be. In truth, before her, I'd never seen a bud of such superior quality. She might very well outshine her sisters.
Millicent herself is uncertain. Is she a literal daughter of Malenia? a clone, a bud grown from Malenia's flesh, or something else entirely? All she knows is that the blood of the Rot goddess flows in her veins, and that truth fuels her sense of purpose. Rather than be horrified by her lineage, Millicent shows empathy towards Malenia. She believes that there is something she must return to Malenia, specifically.
The will that was once her own, the dignity, the sense of self that allowed her to resist the call of the Scarlet Rot, the pride she abandoned, to meet Radahn's measure.
In those words, Millicent reveals a profound understanding of Malenia's tragedy. For centuries, Malenia fought to keep the Rot at bay. Yet, during the Battle of Ionia, she gave in, unleashing the bloom that would scar the lands between and forever break her spirit. Yes, she sacrifices herself for her brother Miquella. She does it out of love. But from that moment on, Malenia becomes a decaying body, awaiting in silence for her brother's return as a god. Millicent wants to restore the honor that Malenia lost, not just to cleanse the Rot's physical corruption, but to heal the spiritual wound. She is innocent, honorable, and motivated not by power or vengeance, but by compassion. Without the knowledge of Millicent, her mentor Gowry has a far darker plan. A devoted follower of Scarlet Rot and Malenia, Gowry sees Millicent as the perfect bloom. After raising Millicent and her sisters, Gowry becomes obsessed with the girl's potential. He believes her to be superior to her siblings, a rare and worthy successor to the goddess of Rot. When the Tarnished meets Gowry, he reveals his true design. He urges the player to betray Millicent at the crucial moment. According to Gowry, only betrayal, the deepest human wound, can force Millicent to bloom.
If you happen to be present for the girl's fight with her sisters, I ask that you side with the sisters and kill Millicent. It must be done by your hand, no other. Millicent trusts you, rather deeply in fact. Sever that trust. Nurtured by betrayal, her bud will flower most vividly. When Malenia ascends to godhood, Millicent too shall be reborn, as a Scarlet Valkyrie.
And so, the Tarnished must choose. Stand with the kindred of Rot, who knows nothing of humanity, or remain loyal to Millicent, a woman who, even as a child of Rot, longs to preserve her humanity. If the player sides with Gowry and invades Millicent's world, the young woman is forced into battle against someone she trusted. Upon her defeat, something horrific unfolds. A great scarlet Ionia flower blossoms where her body falls. Millicent has become a vessel, a new root of the Scarlet Rot, a silent bloom awaiting for Malenia's godhood. The prophecy is fulfilled, as described in the item Millicent's prosthesis. The despair of sweet betrayal transformed Millicent from a mere bud into a magnificent flower. And one day, she will be reborn as a beautiful Scarlet Valkyrie. These worlds frame her death as ritual, a sacrifice. Gowry's experiment succeeds. The girl he called daughter is gone, and only the bloom remains. What will grow from it, we may never know. But the player has another path, to side with Millicent and help her fight her sisters, the 4 women who share her blood. With the Tarnished help, Millicent defeats them. In the aftermath, she is gravely wounded and stands beside the rot-infested pool, silent and exhausted. There is no triumph in her voice. She thanks the player, but then does something irreversible. She removes that unalloyed gold needle from her body. The needle was the only thing holding the Scarlet Rot at bay. By removing it, Millicent chooses death. But more than that, she chooses it on her own terms. In her final words, Millicent speaks with clarity and peace.
Thank you. With your help, I was able to live as my own person, if only in passing. But this is where things end. I paused to even tell you, but I took out the needle myself. Tell whoever put you up to this that if I am to flower into something other than myself, I would rather rot into nothingness as I am.
She will die as Millicent, a human being with her own will, rather than live as a puppet of the Rot's god. And so she dies. Millicent's choice breaks the cycle Gary sought to perpetuate. She does not become a second Malenia. She does not become a vessel for the god of Rot. Her tale, though small in the grand scheme of Elden Ring, is one of the game's most human and most tragic. It is the story of a woman who, touched by corruption, chooses to die with dignity rather than lose herself in power. But it is possible to find parallels between Millicent's story and the lives of female characters from history and literature. Millicent's tale closely resembles those of tragic heroines. Her life contains all the essential elements of classic tragedy: noble intentions, suffering brought on by both fate and human cruelty, and a final act of self-sacrifice that gives her story profound meaning. In history and myth, we find many echoes of Millicent's character in other brave, ill-fated women. One mythological figure, known for defying a cruel destiny through determination, courage, and honor, is Antigone. In Greek mythology, Antigone is the daughter of Oedipus and Jocasta, born into a cursed royal bloodline. Her story is most famously told in Sophocles' tragedy Antigone, where she becomes a symbol of moral defiance. After her brothers Eteocles and Polynices kill each other in civil war, King Creon, her uncle and the new ruler of Thebes, decrees that Polynices, branded as traitor, must not be buried. Antigone defies this edict and, led by divine duty, secretly performs the burial rites. She is caught in the act, arrested and sentenced by Creon to be buried alive in a tomb. The idea of a conscience that transcends the law of the world is also seen in Millicent, a tragic heroine who knowingly chooses to hurt her path, fully aware it will lead to her death.
Tell whoever put you up to this that if I am to flower into something other than myself, I would rather rot into nothingness as I am.
Much like Antigone reflects, I am not afraid of the danger. If it means death, it will not be the worst of deaths, death without honor. History and Christian tradition offer many examples of humans who sacrifice their bodies in the name of ideals and faith. This image of physical pain as a path towards the sacred is especially prominent in Christian hagiography. I explored this theme when discussing Romina, the Saint of the Bud, another female figure tormented by Scarlet Rot. In Millicent's case, born of Rot, her life is marked by pain, amnesia, and the physical loss of her arm, a wound that could have prevented her from continuing her path, but instead becomes a symbol of her resilience. Millicent chooses not to be transformed into a weapon or vessel by Gowry. She embraces sacrifice, not out of a defeat, but as an affirmation of her humanity and self-possession. Two Christian saints, both murdered young women, embody this intersection of pain, will, and spiritual clarity: Saint Lucy of Syracuse and Saint Catherine of Alexandria. Saint Lucy, a Christian martyr of the 4th century, is remembered for her unwavering spiritual vision in the face of extreme bodily torment. When she refuses marriage and pledges her virginity and wealth to God and the poor, she was denounced by suitors and subjected to horrific punishments. One of the most enduring legends tells of her eyes being gouged out, only to be miraculously restored, a symbol of divine vision and inner truth. Like Lucy, Millicent is surrounded by decay and suffering, yet her mind remains clear and her resolve strong. Though her body is failing, she never allows herself to become monstrous. Like Lucy, she chooses death over spiritual corruption. She refuses to be reshaped by the rot into something she is not. Saint Catherine of Alexandria was a scholar and martyr, celebrated for her intellectual brilliance and moral resolve. She is said to have confronted Emperor Maxentius' philosophers, converting many to Christianity before being imprisoned and sentenced to death. When bound to a spike-breaking wheel, the device miraculously shattered, seen as a sign of a divine protection. Catherine is also one of the 14 Holy Helpers, a group of saints specially invoked for healing and protection from illness. Like Millicent, Catherine is a woman of inner strength who stands firm against coercion. Catherine defies imperial power. Millicent defies Gary and the divine will of the Scarlet Rot. Neither accepts being used. Catherine's martyrdom is an act of active refusal, not submission. In Millicent's case, her final choice mirrors this, rejecting the rod, removing the needle, and choosing to die as herself rather than blow into what Gary intended. Indeed, Millicent is portrayed almost like a saint, suffering, virtuous, and ultimately martyred. Like many saints, she is used by others, but in the end, she reclaims her agency through sacrifice. Her pain is spiritualized, and her death brings peace. In a world where most characters either grasp for power or succumb to despair, Millicent finds redemption through self-denial. Religious parallels are not uncommon in Elden Ring. The Golden Order itself echoes Christian institutions and doctrine. Even an unalloyed gold needle resembles a sacred relic, an object of purity designed to resist corruption. When Millicent removes it, the gesture mirrors a saint voluntarily embracing martyrdom, choosing truth over transformation. Millicent's quest is undoubtedly one of the most powerful side missions in Elden Ring, not just because of the character, but also because of what it reveals about strength, choice, and dignity in a world destroyed. Millicent's tale is beautiful and sad. She is born into suffering, shaped by others' ambitions, and yet she chooses her own ending. She resists not with rage and grandeur, but with gentleness, autonomy, and a final act of self-sacrifice. What makes Millicent unforgettable is not her connection to Malenia, but her decisions to be herself in a scenario that tried to make her a tool or a weapon.
Soon, I won't be more than a mound of flesh, curse-laden. Untouchable. I wouldn't want such a thing to bring you harm.
If you enjoy this kind of content, where we explore the intersection of video game lore, history, and literature, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Till next time. Bye!